Hi, I'm Carrie Jo Patterson, and I'm the host of the Esthetician Podcast. When I first launched my podcast, I was so excited about my niche and my brand, and I loved what I was doing. The problem was, is I had no idea how to make my show actually work for my business and get even more people tuning in. And that's why I hired Adam. Working with Adam completely changed the way that I do my business, approach my podcast, everything. I actually have systems in place, which is so amazing. I'm like turning my listeners into coaching clients. But I would say the biggest change that I got was ultimately my time freedom. I used to spend hundreds of dollars on social media. I used to spend hundreds of hours making reels, TikToks, all of the things. Now, my podcast does all the heavy lifting for me. I've gotten my time back while still growing, and that is exactly why I became a coach in the very first place. If you are overwhelmed as a business owner and you know your podcast could be powerful, but you just need someone who actually knows how to turn it into one, hire Adam. You will wish you had done it sooner.
What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's the show where I teach podcasters simple strategies to help you grow your audience and turn your podcast content into new clients. And speaking of turning content into new clients, we've got our podcast content to clients workshop coming up, Pod Pals, April 21st through the 24th. It's a 4-day live virtual workshop. Registration is going great so far. I've got the info in the show notes and on the main website, www.podcastingbusiness.school. It's perfect if you are a podcaster that is using your show to grow your online business and get clients. Check it out. Today, we're talking about small budget paid ad strategies for podcast growth. And this is one of those topics that podcasters make the mistake of skipping over this, like, oh, I don't have money or my show's not making money yet. And you still need to understand this because the strategies I'm going to show you aren't thousands of dollars per month type of paid ad strategies. They could be, but they could be a few $100s per month. So don't discount and say like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm not ready yet. Understand this. This is one of the topics that I wish I understood in 2015 when I started, because my growth curve would have been exponentially faster. I would have built my audience much, much faster. And I would have been able to, do the whole listener to client conversion thing a lot faster as well. So that's kind of the first mistake that I wanted to quickly cover when it comes to this topic. And it's that you're not doing paid ads because your show isn't, quote, making money yet. And like I see this a lot. And it's kind of, it bothers me because I feel like you gotta flip your mindset a little bit, because you could potentially not be making money yet because your audience is just too small. How about that? If you got 4 people listening to your show, and you're like, well, I'm not making money yet. I'm not getting clients yet. I don't have sponsors yet. I'm not able to sell with my affiliate link yet. I don't have any Patreon patrons yet. It's because you got 4 people listening. What if you had 400? All right, what if you invested a few $100s to get a few hundred listeners, and then those people started converting over into your whole monetization funnel? What if? So let's just set that mindset aside of, I'm not going to do paid ads because my show isn't making money. People think that we have to magically make money first, and we take that money and then we reinvest it in the show. And when you really approach this like a business, if you put your business hat on, there's something called startup costs. Anytime you start a business, you want to start a Starbucks or McDonald's franchise or whatever, like there is a franchise fee. There are startup costs. There is an investment that you have to make. So investing a few $100s into some ads, it's not that big of a deal. All right. So again, that's just something that it's a mindset shift I will encourage you to make. Now, the second thing I want to cover is, a lot of people assume I talk about paid ad strategies, they think Facebook and Instagram ads. And that strategy, that lane of paid marketing, it may not necessarily work for you. All right. Especially if you're trying to do it yourself, because it is so complex, so complicated. It's so easy to just throw money and just give it to Mark Zuckerberg and go, here you go, Mark, buy some goats or something. I don't know what's happening. Buy some another hut out in the rainforest where you do your thing out in Hawaii or wherever you live. So, so we're not going to hit that as hard. And I think there's nothing wrong with Facebook and Instagram ads to grow your podcast, but I've got this rule that I've recently named. You guys told me you love it when I name things. So I call this my equivalent platform call to action rule. I think why a lot of podcasters don't see the results that they want, especially when they're doing it by themselves. I'll put that asterisk in there. A lot of podcasters aren't getting those results from those ads because when you are promoting your podcast on a platform like Facebook or Instagram, you are asking them to do a non-equivalent platform shift into a podcast. What I mean is they're on social media. You're asking them to leave an app and go to another thing. That is a non-equivalent platform shift. And that's what you're telling them to do. I like podcast to podcast. They're listening to a podcast, give them a CTA with our ad, and they go listen to my podcast. Or they're reading a newsletter, give them a CTA, they go read my newsletter. So I'm a big believer in the overly marketed to world that we live in. Let's make this as easy as possible and do an equivalent platform CTA shift. All right. So a couple of strategies, a few strategies that do follow this rule. One of them is my favorite small budget paid ad strategy, and that is podcast player app banner ads. So what this is it's a little banner that pops up on the screen when someone is listening to a show. All right. I'm going to cover a couple of my favorite platforms. I will tell you right now, Apple doesn't have these and Spotify doesn't have these. So the two big dogs don't have these options. I would love to see them do this. I'm really working my butt off. I'm trying to get somebody from Spotify on the show to just ask them with questions. I think there's so many nuanced features, and Spotify is trying to be really podcaster friendly, I should say. And I really like that. I just want to talk to somebody and go, okay, I've got questions. And I've struck out completely. So if anybody knows somebody at Spotify that would be willing to come on the show, I would love an introduction. Just email me, podcastingbusinessschool@gmail.com. But Spotify has a different type of ad that I'll cover here in my ad formats I don't like so much section of this episode. But Apple and Spotify don't do this. But two platforms that I've gotten great results with and my clients have gotten great results with are Overcast FM and Podcast Addict. I'm going to cover those here today. So essentially a banner ad, you pay money, you set up the ad. It's really, really easy with these two platforms that I'm going to go through and give you some specifics on here today. And it runs for a set amount of time in the category that you select. Very simple. Like when I teach people how to run Overcast FM ads, it's like 30 seconds and we're done. There's no complicated targeting, nothing. It is really easy and can be, if you follow my rules, cost effective. So let's go through Overcast FM first. So if you guys want to check out and kind of look at what I'm describing here, just go to overcast.fm/ads, overcast.fm/ads, and you will see their little menu. And they have all the different podcast categories like sports, history, true crime, science, news, business, health, all the different, the normal podcast categories. All right. So what you do is you pick a category. It'll say, oh, this is $325 for the health category. You pick a category. You say, okay, the banner ad is consistent of your logo, the logo of your show, which we've talked about this before. If you have some goofy logo with your big face on it and nobody sees the words, it really I don't want you running ads if you are not following my podcast logo protocol, because it will be inefficient. All right. So I'll just say that. But if you do follow my podcast logo protocol, then this banner ad is going to be very effective. Like when I run a banner ad for Podcasting Business School, my show, you can look at it right now. It has huge words. There's no big Adam face picture taking up space. There's no italicized text. It's super easy to read. People see that on a little tiny banner. They see Podcasting Business School. They see the words. They can understand what the show is about. Then you get one line of text to describe it. I like to customize that one line of text depending on which category I'm advertising in. And we'll kind of get to tangential category strategies here in a second. So your ad on Overcast is your show logo plus one line of customized text. You can put whatever you want in there. They give you a little preview. You hit buy and it starts running for 30 days. From immediately when you buy it, it runs for 30 days. Now, let's talk about how to optimize this platform, because you can waste your money still on this. It's harder to waste your money than on like Facebook ads, but can still be done. One thing I don't recommend is running an ad in more than one category at once. And definitely I would not recommend doing the all category option. All right. So obviously we want to look at your core category. So for my show, Podcasting Business School, the business category makes a lot of sense. The education category makes a lot of sense. So that's kind of our home base. But do not discount what I refer to as tangential categories. You have to think, like me as a podcast content consumer, I listen to podcasts every single day. And I listen to business podcasts, marketing podcasts, sports, news, like pop culture stuff, comedy stuff. Most people listen to different types of podcasts. So for you to go, I'm only going to advertise in business or whatever, you're missing out. In 2024, my number one performing ad in Overcast was in the sports category. In 2025, the number one ad performance-wise for me that got the most listeners was in the news category. My show is not about sports or news, but you guys listen to those types of shows. So you have to think, what other types of shows outside of my content niche do my listeners listen to? I know a lot of you guys are like, okay, well, I'm going to go ask Claude or chat, whatever. But like the best thing to do is ask your listeners. Like sending out a poll. You can do polls on Spotify now. So you can put up a poll on Spotify underneath an episode and go, hey, in addition to my type of show, what other types of shows do you listen to? And then just list like sports, true crime, comedy, whatever, and see, like, poll your audience. Ask them. If somebody DMs you or sends you an email, go, oh, by the way, what other types of shows? Like, what are the 3 shows that you listen to in addition to mine? And just kind of make notes. And we can try some different things, because a lot of times, like the business category for me is usually the most expensive category on the Overcast platform. So I like to save money. I like to be efficient with my cash. So I'll look at sports, and if the business category is $800 and sports is $175, I'm going sports. All right. So let's talk about price for a second here, because I'm going to save you a bunch of money. Now, like people in my group coaching program, I usually will send out a news flash if something hits a really good price point. I'm like, if you want to advertise in true crime, it is now at the lowest price I've seen in months. Go get it. Here you go. Because this is demand-based pricing. So they have 5 spots open at any time. If all 5 spots are filled, you can't buy an ad in that category. So again, in business, if all 5 business spots have been purchased, you can't buy until someone's 30 days runs out. And then they'll open up a spot. Now with 1 spot open, that's the most expensive price. If you see 5 spots open, you can go, okay, this is probably getting down to the bottom of the barrel price-wise. So that's one way we can look and make sure we're getting the best price. The other thing is they give you a cost per acquisition estimate. On the website, overcast.fm/ads, you'll see the category, and they'll have a projection of how many people are going to see that and how many new subscribers they project you will get. And they'll give you a range, which is really cool. They'll be like, oh, sports between 50 and 95. And it's all based off of the most recent performance. So it's constantly updated. It's a really slick feature of this platform. So they give you a pretty solid shot of, okay, if you spend this amount of money and you get this many subscribers, you've got a cost per acquisition. And they give you an estimate. I shoot for $7 or less. And a lot of times you look at business and it'll be like $18 or $25 per new subscriber acquired. And that's a subscriber, not a download. Important to note. For everybody that hits that subscribe button, you're paying hopefully $7 or less. That's the rule that I have with my clients. That's when I send out the bulletin, I'm like, oh, we got sports at $2 CPA. Let's go get it. Let's go. So that's a really important thing to keep top of mind. And I say that if you are hearing about this for the first time. So here's where a lot of you are. You're getting like 29 downloads an episode. You've been working your butt off. You thought about quitting. You finally hear about this and you're like, oh my God, I can run an ad in sports and get 100 new subscribers. I can 4x or 5x my downloads with one ad, you're going to be super hyped. But if you go on there and it's a $20 CPA, you got to be patient. The price will come down. All right. The two times that Overcast FM prices go up are right after the two major podcasting live events. So after PodFest and after Podcast Movement, somebody will talk about this strategy and a lot of people will buy ads and it drives the prices up. The other time is when I talk about it on the show. So this episode will probably drive the prices up. It usually happens when I talk about it on the show. I'm very proud that we've got one of the most downloaded podcasts about podcasting. Some people have said it's the most downloaded podcast about podcasting. So I'm very proud of that, but just know that I drive traffic to this when I do an episode and it's going to raise the prices. Just be patient. Do not FOMO into a terrible price and go, Adam, I paid $30 per new subscriber on Overcast. Gee, thanks, buddy. I don't want you to have an inferior result. Just be patient. The prices always come back down. All right. Now, what I would do is kind of get some target categories and go, okay, these three seem to be kind of my wheelhouse. Here's my main one and a couple tangential categories, and just watch the platform for a few weeks. Just set a reminder at the end of your day or beginning of the day. I think that's smarter at the beginning of the day, and just log on and just look at it and see what the price is and make a few notes and just kind of notice the trends, be patient, and grab that price when it makes sense. All right. So that's the breakdown of overcast.fm/ads. Now let's talk about Podcast Addict. Podcast Addict is a smaller platform. It's different. All right. So when you buy and this one is podcastaddict.com/ads. So when you go on Podcast Addict and you buy an ad, it will start on the first of a month. So it's not an immediate start. So you can't start it on like the 17th. It's got to be the first of the month and it runs for the calendar month. I believe it's 30 days. I think it's just a 30-day run. But it could just be a calendar month. I'm not 100% sure on that. I haven't paid that close attention. So, and you can buy up to 2 months in advance. Now, one of the key differences between Podcast Addict and Overcast, besides Podcast Addict being smaller, so less exposure, is on Podcast Addict, they tell you which categories that you can advertise in. Okay. So they will tell you which categories you can advertise in. It's usually between 1 and 3 categories. The categories they give you are based off of the categories you list your show in and your host. So with Podcasting Business School, I'm under business entrepreneurship and like business marketing. So if I were to list it on business entrepreneurship and education, how to, then I would probably get more categories to be able to advertise on Podcast Addict. So just in case, if you get on there, you only have one thing, that's because your host description has you listed in only one type of category. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. All right. Now, they also give you projection ranges, and they are usually like giant. So it'll be like 15 to 300, like literally a huge variance. I've had some clients go on this and knock it out of the freaking park and get hundreds and get a $2 or less CPA. Others have not done so well. So this is a little bit more, I'd say a little bit less consistent of performance. It's a little bit boom or bust-y feeling. So keep that in mind. The other difference is that the ad there's no customization. It is your logo plus the first few lines of your host description. So again, we got to make sure that art is dialed in, and we got to make sure our podcast host description is dialed in. If you've not put any effort into that, do that before you run ads. All right. And maybe that's an important thing to touch on real quick. Now it's top of mind. It's like, who should not run ads? I think paid ads. So I think somebody that does not have any sort of an offer, or you don't have at least a newsletter opt-in for people. I think if you have less than 20 episodes, I probably wouldn't run ads yet. So if you got 5 episodes, don't get all hyped up about it and buy, because I want people to be able to binge. Like that binge factor is a part of this, where they go, oh my God, I love this show. I'm going to download 18 episodes and binge listen to them on the next long trip I take or whatever, or while I walk every morning. Like I want that binge factor to be there. So you get that one subscriber, but you get dozens of downloads from each one because of the binge factor. So I think those would be a couple examples of who shouldn't run ads yet. I think if you have not optimized the name of your show and the art, if I look at the name of your show and I don't know what it's about, who it's for, and I don't see a couple keywords, don't run ads. If your art is a big picture of your face and there's really hard to read text, because these banner ads are small, all right? And if by looking at your art, people cannot tell what the show is about or who it's for, don't run an ad. It's not going to, it's not going to perform optimally for you. And I want that. I want that for you, Pod Pals. All right, I've got another category of small budget paid ads that I call content creator networking strategies. These are like the guerrilla marketing hustle strategies. All right. There's a couple of them. Number one, sponsor someone else's podcast. Number two, sponsor someone else's newsletter. All right. Now, obviously with the podcast, this podcast is being brought to you by blah, blah, blah show. All right. Now with the newsletter, referring back to my equivalent platform, CTA, call to action rule, what I'd recommend is if you do sponsor someone else's newsletter, the call to action is to your newsletter, not your podcast. I want them to go apples to apples conversion. They're reading a newsletter. Ooh, come and get my newsletter. Okay, cool. I like newsletters. There we go. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, I know the question that you have is, how do I make these types of connections? All right. With how do I reach out to somebody and sponsor their podcast or their newsletter? And how much does it cost, Adam? How much does this cost? Well, the nice thing is there's not a lot of people doing this. There's a few like platforms that are trying to arrange these connections. I don't know if anybody's doing it super, super well or not, or cost effectively or not. But I do know that like there's not just a lot of independent podcasters reaching out going, hey, I love your show. I would love to sponsor it and pay you. So that's going to be well received and you're probably going to get a good deal. And somebody go, well, I've never had that question before. What should I charge you? That should be like music to your ears. What should I charge you? Oh, let's test it out. How about I give you $100 and you do a couple episodes and let's see what happens. And away you go. So there's a little bit of networking and negotiation involved, but you make these connections. Number one, the sweet spot is previous guests. If you've got a previous guest on your show that has a podcast or a newsletter, you could package it together. Go, hey, I'd love to sponsor your podcast this month and your newsletter the following month. I wouldn't do it the same week. I want to spread those out a little bit. Package deal, and away we go. All right. Previous guests, reach out to them. Another one is like future guests. So I would add a question to your guest onboarding form that says something like, would you be open to me sponsoring your podcast and or your newsletter? Guess what? That box is going to get checked every single time. And that opens up an opportunity after the episode. Go, hey, I noticed you said you would be open to discussing me sponsoring your show or your newsletter. Can we set up another time to talk about that? Or maybe you have a little form that they fill out or something like that. But that's easy. That's super easy. Then the other place to look for is like, you got to get your butt into networking events, live events, Podcast Movement, Podfest, all the regional events, different online networking with other content creators, memberships, things like that. And just look for collaboration opportunities. All right. Cool. We're 22 minutes deep into this. I want to, as we close up, I want to cover a few paid strategies that seem to be inefficient that you could be tempted to try. But I'm going to say, hey, let's just wait on these for a minute because I have not seen great results. I mentioned it earlier. Number one is the Spotify ads. Spotify will allow you to create audio ads, but you can only do them. They're only played during music, not podcasts. So that's the first thing I don't like about it. The other thing is there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of targeting on there. It's complex, and audio is another variable. Because what if all your targeting is right and your audio and your call to action just sucks? Like what if you screw up the ad part? That's why I love the simplicity of the banner ads. It's just like one line of text, and I feel like we can nail one line of text. But there's a lot more variables with that. A couple years back, I did a big test group where a lot of you got together with me and we ran audio ads, and The only people it made sense for were people that had a city or region specific podcast. So if it was like I had one client that is a chiropractor in Pittsburgh, and we could run Spotify audio ads to his zip code. All right. You can be zip code specific and run an ad and go, okay, you got to go listen to this show. You're in Pittsburgh. You're a health person. Listen to this show. If you have maybe a comedy podcast and you tour and you're doing live dates, it would make sense. Or if you're doing a live event, I think that would make sense in like Chicago, then I would target that Chicago zip code with an audio ad, and I wouldn't necessarily market your live event. I mean, you could do that as well, but I would market your show, and on your show, you're talking about the live event. You're going to get more reps in with that call to action. Okay. But those are the only things that got any sort of, and it wasn't even that great of results, if I'm being honest, with the regional stuff. All right. But I think if you have a big budget, then you could it's all about getting multiple exposures. Because if you're like, I'm going to run a Spotify audio ad for my podcast to everyone in the United States, like it's not going to work. There's not going to be enough volume of people hearing that multiple times. Nobody's going to hear it multiple times. All right, so keep that in mind. Not ready yet for the Spotify audio ads. Would love to see banner ads added to Spotify. If I get somebody from Spotify on the dang show, that's one of my first questions. When can we get this? It will work. And they will make a bunch of money. Like money is just waiting for them on the other side of that strategy. Okay. Another strategy that seemed to be a little bit of a pause button for me right now is a few of the podcast host platforms have these podcast host based ads. So I don't know if Buzzsprout is still doing, I know they did it a year and a half, 2 years ago, where they're like, hey, you can run an ad for your show on other shows that are hosted in Buzzsprout. And it was a little bit clunky, a little bit weird. I mean, I love what they're thinking. I love the direction that they're going, and I hope they continue to tweak it and improve it. But I end up like they gave you the option to select which shows, but it was just kind of clunky where I had to keep on selecting all these shows. Like, no, I don't want it to be seen by all these shows. I had to basically unselect from being played on a lot of shows that weren't good fits. And I did not get great results from that. Then again, just a third platform that I think we should wait on a little bit, unless you have a team and a budget, would be Facebook and Instagram ads. Like if you're working, like I always recommend Matt and Megan from Chime House Media. They've run Facebook and Instagram ads for me before. They know what they're doing. I have a bigger budget than, a lot of people out there. I'm not like giant influencer budget, but I can throw some cash at some ads to see if they actually work or not. But if you don't have much of a budget, like this is definitely not a small budget strategy. And that's what the topic of the episode is: small budget paid ad strategies for podcast growth. So I would not consider Facebook and IG a small budget strategy, especially if you're not using a qualified expert to help you set up those ads. All right, Pod Pals, that is the episode. Hopefully you got some ideas. Hopefully you gained a little bit of confidence. And if you go to Overcast or Podcast Addict especially, look at those prices. They're not that bad. It's not that big of a deal. You can spend a couple $100, $200-$300, sometimes less than that. One note is that I probably should have talked about this during the Overcast FM segment, is that always the lowest cost category on Overcast is kids and family. It's always like somewhere between $75 and $150. I would not buy an ad in that. Even if your show is in the kids and family category, it never performs well. All right. So I wouldn't buy an ad in that category. People just kind of gravitate towards that because it's like the cheapest one. Let's try this out. And it never really goes well. So I would not do that. Okay. That's my little asterisk of this episode. But just kind of keep an eye on those categories, learn the pricing, talk to your audience, see what other types of shows, start networking with other content creators, look for opportunities, get out there, hustle a little bit and just like network with other people and go, hey, I love your show. Your audience is my audience. I would love to invest in your show with some sponsorship of your podcast and or your newsletter. That's going to open the door for a lot of, potential advertising opportunities. All right. Hi, pals. Do not forget, the link is in the show notes for my podcast content to clients workshop, April 21st through the 24th. We've got live help sessions. I'm delivering all the daily workshop with a private podcast feed. I've got a companion workbook with all kinds of homework. We are going to get you to the point where you're able to release content, feel very confident that is not only going to get you clients, but it's going to attract more right fit clients to your audience. You're going to build your audience full of right fit potential clients. So I'm really excited for it. Check out the link in the show notes. And with that, Pod Pals, I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I'll see you on the next episode.
This is Tommy from the Tommy's Outdoors Conservation and Science podcast. My favorite episode of the podcasting business school is episode 365 because it summarizes and condenses all the great advice Adam is giving away for free so you can love your podcast like a hobby and build it like a business.